You are now listening to the I Think I Love My Wife podcast. And this is your best friend's best friend, Chidozie Okafor, ready to take you on another journey. Are you with me? Because I'm ready. Let's get it. This episode is sponsored by Nello Effect, a coaching and consulting service that helps people turn mindfulness into action as they navigate the dating world as well as their relationships. Follow on Instagram at nello.effect and find more information in the episode description. Today we talk about experiencing tough challenges in the early part of your marriage, like a miscarriage and a long fight with COVID. We discuss and emphasize how important it is to find time and space for yourself in the midst of internal and external chaos. And we talk through how important it is to show up for your partner and your family during tough moments. So yeah, we were talking about ways that your wife at an early stage, was communicating things that were important to her and boundaries that she had and how you responded to it. I just want to get to some of the general questions. We always do a segment on the podcast, our quick fire round, and in some of the ways that we talked about earlier, where there's not an absolute yes or no. I do think it's important for people to see the spread, right, of what other people are doing, so that you can't gauge it off of this and no. Some people you're not giving me 2 carrots, I ain't trying to fool with you, all this other stuff. But I think when you see a spread of what people are actually getting or doing, then it's well, maybe my expectation might not be as realistic as what I'm seeing in reality, And so I asked all the guys the same question, and so quick answer, and then we'll pick a couple to go deeper on. So get started. Is it necessary for your wife to be a best friend?
Ooh, I say yeah.
Is your wife your best friend currently?
Yeah.
You sound a little hesitant.
Nah,
okay.
I'm just doing the mental double check. Yeah, nah.
He's yeah, I think she's my best friend. I gotta start a podcast. I think she's my best friend.
Start playing Young Thug or something.
Next season, I have the effects. I have the sound effects. I asked this question, and I think I've gotten some criticism because people think I care about it as much. But I do hear men talk about this, and so that's why I asked this question. But when you guys were dating, how long did you guys go before she offered to pay?
First date.
She hit you with a pump fake, or she was ready to?
No, she was ready.
Okay, I want to dive in that one later.
I paid, but
yeah, I mean that's an easy pump fake one. From a priority standpoint,
it's levels though, dog.
Yeah.
It's levels of that pump fake, though.
Yeah,
right? So
we're gonna talk about that one. From a priority standpoint, when you look at love, is it wife over children or children over wife?
Wife over children.
Okay. Was your wedding worth it financially?
Yes.
We can give.
I had to think about it for a second.
Ballpark. You can give a round number. How much you spent on your wedding?
More than 20.
Less than 40.
Less than 30. Somewhere.
Okay, got it. If you had a fixed amount of money, would you rather spend more on a big ring or more on a big wedding?
I would spend it on the wedding.
Okay. Do you guys do joint accounts or separate accounts?
Both, but joint for 90% of it. We have separates that we have allowances for.
So everything comes from your employer to one, and then y'all figure it out.
Okay. And then we got a set amount that goes to our individuals.
Yeah. I'm a believer in allowances, bro. I get it. I've been if you talk to anybody that knows me for a long time, I've been preaching allowances since I've been in undergrad, since 18, and women would get mad you ain't giving me no allowance if I got a job. I'm it's just an allocation of funds,
Yeah.
How are you when you think about your in-laws? What's their relationship like? Are y'all cool as a fan? We cordial? I don't have to be around them. I'm cool.
Oh, I'm real cool with my in-laws. I don't need to be around them all the time. But yeah, no no issues, no concerns there. Also because they're separated. So
Yeah.
I'm. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say like y'all can just talk to each other independent of like your wife needing to be there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like if I need to. Now, is that going to be common? No.
Yeah.
But if I need to, no problem.
Gotcha. True or false? Guys mature later than women.
Mostly true.
Okay. So
usually true.
So this is a two-parter. When we talk about sex, what is your personal preference? All the time, weekly, monthly, or whatever.
Weekly.
And what's the reality?
Weekly.
Okay, so it's in line. When you think about, you guys both have careers. You have a child that you guys are raising. You guys are also both individuals. When you think about how much alone time you and your wife get, like percentage of like a day or a week, do y'all actually get? Or you can do hours,
Together?
Yeah, together, like just like you two together for y'all.
We probably get, even if it was now a couple times, like about 3 hours a day.
Okay.
During the week.
Yeah.
And then weekend is varies, but yeah, 3 hours Monday through Friday.
Got it. Are you a journey person or a destination person?
Ooh, man, that's real deep. I'm gonna go journey.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Do you think you married up?
I'm hesitating because I'm like, partly yes, and then partly like, no, I think I'm married right at my level.
There's nothing wrong with married to a level.
But I think marrying up in terms of like making me come up to a level and be.
It happens sometimes.
Yeah.
So if y'all in parity, I think that's typically the goal.
Yeah, so it's like in that regard, it's like effectively then yes, I married up and like now we good. So now we at parity.
Then we at parity now. She helped elevate you. Who runs the show?
Absolutely.
You or her?
She runs the show. I do all the talking though.
you the spokesperson. What's your wife's greatest attribute?
Oh gosh, her greatest attribute. I guess that would be different from what we said earlier.
Could be.
I'm still go with. I'm still going with determination, man.
Okay. And then
like, when she has her mind set on something, I don't care what it is. Like, she gonna see that thing through. And
good or bad?
I think that's if
no,
it's
I'm
bad,
talking about what her mind is set on, not the fact that she gets it. If it's a good thing or a bad thing, right?
Oh no, if it's a bad day, then I'm like, you gotta rein that in. Then she's like, okay, cool,
got it.
But like, yeah, I just really, I love that about her across the board.
That's real. And then the last question is, what's more important to you, to be respected or to be loved? In terms of like your relationship.
I would say to be respected.
All right, cool. That was it. That was it. So tell me about this.
I hope I don't play this back and then she started trying to cut my head off.
Then you just got more things to talk about.
I'll be like, Dozy said this.
We've created opportunities for continual dialogue. We always say at the end, we hope the conversation keeps going.
Oh, yeah, man. All right.
So you were saying, the pump fake. So she asked to pay for it on the first date. And not asked, but she was willing to pay. Yeah, she was willing to pay.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah. So I feel like that's I don't know your wife. I thought it's a cop out. Like, any respectable man is not gonna let a woman pay on the first date. You know what I'm saying? So that's like if you're just gonna pump fake just to show that you wanted to, that's the best. Put y'all on game. That's the best time to pump fake, unless you with some whack guy that's gonna actually take you up on it. But like, after a certain number, I think guys generally, I won't go as far as saying checking for it, but like when a woman does it, I think guys make mental notes like, oh, that's dope. I see that she is reciprocating the effort, right? Versus if there's a prolonged period of time and there hasn't been any effort to like show, and you used the term earlier, like we were both committed. You could tell we knew we were both committed to this, right? that commitment and investment may not look like she paid for one every 6 dates, but there are things you can do, whether it's monetarily or you planned it to show like, hey, I'm in this too. I'm not just showing up.
Yep. No, 100% agree. And I think, so to your point around first date, being able to do like the pup fake. Oh yeah. Like that could, you see some D Wade, Miami Heat style joints out here. Like, oh, I'd have seen it executed with precision.
Had the card ready.
Yeah. Right. And so I'm confident that, and no, I'm pretty confident that was not the case. But I want to say like our third date, like she paid for that one, like was like adamant about it. It was third or fourth maybe, and I think she said something like, "Yeah, like you shouldn't be paying for this all the time. Like I got a job."
So hey, listen, I'm all for it. So this is a little bit of a side. I wasn't planning on going into this because I don't really try to bring polarizing people into the conversation because I try to keep a level of sophistication and practicality to the podcast. But Kevin Samuels, I'm sure you heard of him, right?
Yes.
he made a comment, and usually he's like triggering women, but he made a comment to a guy and was like, yo, if you're not paying for everything and taking care of them, you're yada, 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 yada. And I respectfully disagree with him because I feel like when you are dating for like marriage, you're dating for partnership, and partnership requires mutual investment. And so want to get your thoughts on, I'm sure there are listeners here, women that are on that. I shouldn't have to pay for this and this and this and that. And I shouldn't have to, what's your response to him or that mentality?
I don't prescribe to that mentality like at all. Like I just don't think that's realistic in 2021 and the times that we're in. I think I still believe in, if you're courting someone, the guy should be out, especially like first date.
Yeah.
First for a while. Like,
treat her right, take care of her. Yeah.
Exactly. But I firmly believe in partnerships, and in partnerships there are shared resources and shared expenses. And so anytime that I've ever, and I've never, since that with my wife, but like I've dated some women in the past who like were more of the school of thought, like, oh, like you're supposed to be taking care of everything. And I'm like, that's great. This is why we're not going out no more. And, you enjoy the rest of your
day. Finding free stuff to do. Oh, we chilling at the park today.
Yeah. Oh, no, like you got to do that.
Ice cream. Even though ice cream getting expensive these days. These fancy ice cream places.
Yeah. And so it's funny you bring up, the boy Kevin Samuels, because you said he's triggering. I play his videos around my wife all the time because she gets so mad.
It's hilarious.
She gets so mad.
It's hilarious.
She's so mad. But every once in a blue moon, she'd be like, I hate to say it, but you're right.
I mean, I'd say like
I'm like, duh.
7.75 times out of 10, he's like saying something that, at least from a man's perspective, I can't speak to the flip side of it, that I think if guys were surveyed, right, this was like Family Feud and we were surveyed, it is in line with how a lot of men think. I think he goes above and beyond to communicate it in a way that, like for clickbait, right? But if you get beyond the messenger and look beyond the choice words he used, the theme of what he's saying a lot of times is accurate.
Yeah, delivery could be trash.
No, but I think his delivery is intentional too. Like that's why he's
definitely intentional. What you're not gonna do.
and I don't feel, the reason why I don't feel bad about the people that call on there, and more often women, because they sign up for it. He's not new.
Yes.
You know exactly what you were signing up for when you called in. So like, why am I feeling bad for you? But that's enough about him. You've been in the game 2 years, 3 years, going on 3 years, right? You said?
No, coming up on 2 years.
Coming on 2 years. And so you guys were in like honeymoon phase, so to speak, first year marriage. Well, hey, hubby, hey, wifey, yada, 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 yada. Yep. And then pandemic happened. And I'm sure you guys were like, if like anybody else or any other couple, you guys were stuck to be around each other all the time. And so,
yes,
how was that experience of like, and then you have a child too there as well. And not to get into all of, like, I'm sure there was a whole bunch of stuff that with online learning and virtual learning and all that. But when you think about just your dynamic with your wife, how was that? And how did it change, grow, tested during this period of time?
Yeah, I think so. Clearly, everybody's impacted from COVID one way or the other. I think for us, it started like halfway through our first year of marriage. So like that first year of like honeymoon, outside of the actual honeymoon, the first couple of months, that was not our reality at all. And so we started to, deal with our own trials and tribulations, not because of like the strength of our marriage, but just because of COVID, because my, wife ended up getting COVID, literally, like, I want to say the world shut down. She came home like that Friday, from work, and she was working in a hospital at the time, but like in supply chain. So she was somebody literally ordering the PPE, like trying to get this for a particular location. And she walked in the house looking like death. And it was scary, bro. Crazy fever, like
up front and personal.
Yeah, man. So it was like, it's right in your face. And at the time, this is when like you couldn't get tests.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't, like, unless you were literally about to like walk, fall flat on your face and die, they wouldn't test you. So like around that time, you could only get tested for like pneumonia and other stuff. But we were able to do that, and like the doctor said, yeah, you're presumed positive. And that was like for me and her. But for her, where it was definitive, like it was bad. Like we had a couple of proactive drives to the hospital, to the ER.
Oh, wow.
Because she was afraid that she couldn't breathe. She was feeling pressure. Luckily, at that point in time, like they checked her lungs and things were okay, but still couldn't get a test, man. This is like March, April of last year.
Yeah, they're still trying to build them out.
Yeah, right. So she is effectively still like, she's a long hauler, where like I'd say to today, probably 90% of what she was before that. Like occasionally, the way she would explain it to me is, throat issues. Sometimes feel like she's got like a 5-pound weight on her chest. So I think like that first year of marriage was like, okay, how do we work through this together?
Yeah.
How do I make sure like I can support her and something that we all are going through at the same time, but basically everybody just winging it. Right. And so you had that going on. And if I back up a little bit, and this is where like it gets kind of like the double whammy is, so a few months after we got married is where we delayed our honeymoon. And so we had our honeymoon, it was like November. So we come to find out like January, so like a couple months before COVID. Hey man, like expect it. Like it's about to be great, man. I'm about to have a baby in the mix. And then roughly, I guess like 5-6 weeks after that, because she was like, something's not right. Long story short, miscarriage.
No, sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah, man. So that was a very tough pill to swallow. And then like COVID effectively happened, a few weeks later to her.
Yeah.
So like this entire first year of marriage, or like second half going into, effectively, in the last year, it was dealing with what we believe is health issues related to both of those things.
Yeah.
So trying times, man, for sure.
Well, I'm glad that y'all are on the other side and still fighting. How do you? I guess a couple of things that come to mind. I want to keep it on her and then I get to you. How do you? It's about both of y'all and then you specifically. How do you guys? And I think in the Black community especially, we don't talk about these things as much. In terms of the stereotypes, we always having kids. We it's too many. And there are a lot of people that struggle with pregnancy and things like that. And so how was that just for you guys of like processing what happened? And did you even have time given like the COVID impact right after?
Yeah, no, it was hard, man. It's tough, clearly unexpected. Um, I I look back at it and I tend to be okay with it because it effectively shows me that like you may have a plan, but God's got a different one, right?
Yep.
So it's kind of
Amen.
like you kind of got to joke about it in that regard, just to bring light to the situation.
He's definitely
But
undefeated.
yeah, exactly. And so for us, it was like okay, same age. She's already got a daughter. Like get married. We're gonna plan this out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, hold on, buddies. Not gonna work that way.
Yeah.
And so I think that realization of like, oh, like this is not just going to be, as turnkey or as easy as I thought. And it was like really, difficult to deal with because even amongst like our like really close friends, like we told some, didn't tell others, like, and I had to learn more about things like, oh, what is a rainbow baby? Which is like when you had the next
one, yeah.
The next one after that, like stuff that I had never, like heard about. And it was tough because it's like I didn't really have a lot of people to talk to.
Yeah.
These things, so it's like I'm kind of talking to her. I'm gonna lie. Fortunately, well, unfortunately, a close friend did experience the same thing, so I was able to, do some venting and get some guidance from him, as well as a family member, proactively shared their struggles because they had just delivered their first baby, but had a lot of issues I had never even heard of, right? Like,
yeah.
So I think so for me it was more like, okay, this is tough, but let me, look at it as like, okay, this one wasn't meant to be. Let me try to support her as much as possible. I'd say honestly, man, like she was way stronger with it than I was. Because I think she just kind of felt like, hey, something's not right here. Again, had already been, already been pregnant and, given birth before.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, okay, she probably consoled me a little bit more, if I'm being honest, early on. And then from there, it was like, okay, oh, now we got COVID. Yeah. So it's like it just switched up overnight.
Did you feel like, one, I want to just thank you for sharing, because like you said, I think we have a lot of people probably in our circles, like in general, people in general have people in their circles that have gone through these things and are going through these things. And like, it's not something you openly share with folks. And so how was it just for you mentally as a man, and this being your first time, like the excitement and then I imagine devastation of it while trying to be there for your family,
Yeah, man. Like the wildest thing about it is I remember being at the doctor's office and like they were doing the ultrasound. And as I know now, like you're looking for a heartbeat. And I used to make a joke to my wife of like, hey, because her father is a twin. So allegedly, like skips a generation. It's like, hey man, baby, if we look up, get two, knock it out in one swoop. And so we're at the doctor and they're showing the ultrasound, and then they make a comment about like 2 sacks. Right. So I immediately go like, whoa, like, wait, what? But then it's like this weird, awkward silence. And it's like, oh, we need to have you talk to the doctor. Then doctor comes in, and that's when we find out, like, hey, there's nothing in there. And so it went from like already excited to like
bigger high, and then
to like
drop.
Oh gosh, like yeah, like I remember we both, I was like crying in the doctor's office. We both left. Like I came home. I didn't even tell my boss I was coming to work today. I'm like, I'm just going home. And we probably watched the worst movie you could ever watch around that time. I can't remember what it's called. It's on Netflix. But it was like a couple. Scarlett Johansson was in it. Like they were fighting, and then they had a kid, and they separated. We watched that.
Hitch? No, that's not Hitch.
I don't know.
That's not Hitch.
Nah, it's got I guess what's the white dude's name? Adam Levine or something. Him and Scarlett. Anyway, but it was just like, this is not the movie you watch.
Yeah.
but we did, and I think it was just like, okay, we kind of took some time to ourselves, and from that point, it was like, okay, accept it. Try to look at the positive signs of like this one may not have meant to be, and just sort of recalibrate. But I think it was one of those things where had she not been strong enough to console me a little bit, like I could have went off the rails. And I think because like she was at peace with it as best as she could be at the time, it made me be at peace with it as well.
Do you think her having like a child like at first helped her in terms of, one, I think she has a child, but two, like I don't know the best words to frame it, but two, from like the experience that she already had with a child, it didn't rock her. This, not that it wasn't like it didn't hit her, but had this been her first child, it would have hit differently than like your second child,
No, I completely agree there. I think the devastation is still there.
Yeah,
there's still something happening inside, but because she wasn't new to it, going back to her being so detail oriented, the weeks, leading up to it, like she was like, something's not right. And I think she probably knew something.
Processing it beforehand.
Yeah. And then obviously just as a woman, probably knowing other women who have gone through this experience, it was probably more top of mind, where I'm coming in extra, wet behind the ears. Like we talking names and all of this type of stuff. And it's like, oh, like we haven't even gotten there yet.
Yeah. No, crazy. That it happened. I only can imagine, like what that experience was like, and to be going through that and then get hit by COVID so upfront and personal. I'm just like, I think about like, and I have a biased view, but I think about all the things that guys like, and women deal with a lot. So I'm not trying to make it worse than the other, but I think there's a lot of things that are probably not talked about as much, that are burdens that men have, right? That they think about and they try to, be strong for and put the weight on their shoulders as it pertains to being the protector and and security for their family. And so then you have these two things come up as a man, right? You're already doing, like, life's already like has the normal set of weight, right? And then you have these two things that kind of hit you back to back, that are like completely out of your control. Like, I only can imagine the weight that you feel now to like, I still got to be strong for them.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I haven't sat down and ever like thought about processing it in that way. Cause I think when you're in it, it's just like, how do I get through the day?
Yeah.
Right. How do I, like if it was on like pregnancy piece, because the part that on the miscarriage side is it took my wife's body a really long time to effectively go from pregnant to non-pregnant. Mm-hmm. Like it was not a quick turnaround. This was like months.
Yeah.
So it was that on top, and I think again that could have been partly caused by the COVID piece. So it was like, okay, how do I just try to like make things as simple and easy for her? And I think honestly it was like just a lot of communication back and forth, like how you feeling, how am I feeling, like talking to a couple of close friends, so it wasn't just me keeping it all in my head, but it still came back to like, all right, like stuff still's gotta happen right here. I still gotta go to work. I still gotta figure out how do we parent this kid in this, COVID environment, and, she in a new school, and it's like all of this stuff was happening at the exact same time.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy how much has happened in the world in general. And then like throw in like your personal stuff. And as you were talking, I was like, shit, man. And then like all this, George Floyd stuff happened. Yeah. And so I'm like, for me, I don't know if, I mean, I live in Texas, and so a lot of times stuff happens and I'm already numb to it. So it doesn't hit me the same way, because as a protection, protective measure, like I'm just kind of numb to it. So I don't get rocked by it. And so even like the George Floyd thing, I wouldn't say I was rocked by it as much as I was about Ahmaud Arbery happening. And like, that happened. All these things happened. And the Ahmaud Arbery piece hit me, maybe because I run, right? And it hit me like hard, like, yo, these weren't even police. These were just regular people that felt empowered enough to do something like that. And I know like how much that rocked me with my simple ass life going on. And so I'm thinking about like, yo, how would I have been able to, you react, right? You know, shows you your character, but just like the psyche of your wife, family, COVID, life shit, and you're a black man that like this could be you at any point in time. It's like a wound that heals and then you rip the Band-Aid off again on it. Like, how do you just find space for yourself to make sure, or how did you, or have you, if you did, find space and time for yourself to make sure that Courtney was good so that you could show up for the people you needed to show up for in the most effective way possible?
Yeah, I think so. A few things. First is even on the COVID front of how like my household was impacted, like context of like, luckily my wife is still here.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
amen.
Because there are a lot. Yeah. So, because at that point in time, it was like pretty much black community was over indexing in deaths.
Yeah. The numbers
like,
are going up.
That
was true. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So it's like knowing extended family on like her side, sort of on my side, it's like, okay, this is happening. So it's like, okay, I'm glad we're still here. So like solace in that. I think also being stuck in the house, it was like, I'm looking at it right now. At the time, it was just a regular spin bike. Got on the Peloton game.
Yeah, we was on it.
Had me a different little outlet. Got me a little workout area in our basement. So it's like, that's my me time,
According like I'm in the best shape of my life.
I don't know. Well, I mean, you can't when you balance it that with, bottles of alcohol, right? and sitting at a chair all day looking at a laptop.
Yeah.
But then also like even like everything that was happening in the world with the lack of justice, it was probably a degree of like candidness for me of just like I'm not dealing with anything superficial. Like even talking to my manager and stuff at work, it's like this sucks. Like we having the same conversations that like my dad had in like, or based off experiences that he had like 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Like this is stupid. And so like literally being extra candid, in my day job in that phase, so that I was not trying to, bring that additional burden, from the personal side to like what's happening in the world to like how I got to like think through how I'm getting this check. And I was like, no, like, y'all gonna hear how I think, how I feel. And I think that was another way for me to, have an outlet, but in a way that was on my terms. And so I think those were, a couple of things. Like it probably helped a lot at the time, but on the same vein of like, what would I do to just get away? I was tired of being in the house, got a bike, like, and, started riding a bike for the first time since, I was a kid. Now I got 2 of them.
Oh,
so
nice.
It's like just different things like that to just sort of like stay active because you need it, but like it did help me get away from
take a break,
like the realities of everything that was going on.
No, I mean, again, I appreciate you for sharing because I think there's so many people that have similar stories, and I think it helps a little bit. It doesn't fix it, but to know like there are other people that have done it and are fighting through it and are, for lack of better words, on the other side of things, whether they're in their beginning of their journey, know they can do it too, because I think we don't talk about it enough and like what that experience looks like, to know that these things, as unfortunate as they are a lot more common than we think. And so sometimes it can get a little bit, it can be internalized, like, why me? And something's wrong with me, versus like, this is more common than we tend to like actually see in our everyday life. So again, I will continue to appreciate you for being open enough to share those with the world.
Yeah, man. It's I definitely asked my wife to get the okay first, and she was
tell
like,
her I say thank you too.
Will do. I mean, because this is like we've had the same conversations of like this happens so much, but like it's very like taboo and it shouldn't be that way. So, at some point in time, what are the different outlets to, put that out into the world? This would be one of them for me.
No, I appreciate it, man, and I think that's part of why I have the podcast. I think we talk about recognizing blessings, right? Life is all about perspective, in terms of how you move. And someone could be in my position. I'm 35. A lot of my friends married and kids, and woe is me because I haven't found that person yet. But I honestly believe that part of the flip side of it is I have a lot of knowledge in front of me, right? That a lot of people aren't as blessed to have, of experiences that I don't have to necessarily go walk through there, live it to learn from. And so I've been very grateful for that and learning from folks like you. But I also recognize a lot of people don't have that in their circle. And so they're talking to people in a similar boat that's giving them terrible advice. And then they wonder why they're in the predicament they're in. And so for me, this was like a way to, how do we share some of this wealth of wisdom that I've been blessed to have in my circle with the world, to get the perspective of things that, like, I'm sure if I would have visited, we would have been chopping up and talking about some of this stuff anyway. And so I was like, how do we get it out there so people can, like, not say, well, you should go do this because Courtney did it, but you hear enough stories and you start to see themes about people that are in good, healthy relationships and how they're moving. And then you can, if you have an ounce of reflection or in you, reflective nature, you can start to process it however it works for you and say, maybe there's some things I should be doing differently, or I should incorporate in what I'm doing that might work for me. And so that's kind of the goal with this. I know we get close to time. I just want to wrap it up with a few more questions, and then we can call it a night. How would you say you've matured and grown in your relationship?
I'd say I think that I am more patient for the important things, and willing to. I'm very prideful, but I'm willing to chip away at that pride more than I was before being married. Because it's got to be. It's not just me anymore.
What about your wife? How do you think she's grown and matured in y'all's marriage, or from y'all's marriage?
I think one thing that she's been really good at is when we talk about, like, you think about like our love languages.
Yep.
Like we sort of have some misalignment. So I'm more of an acts of service type of guy. She is more of a physical touch, a little bit of words of affirmation. Those are not things that I naturally do. So I think while I'm trying to get better at that, like, she is willing to accept that, whether she say it or not, I believe she's willing to accept that it's going to be a journey, and I'm trying to get there to meet her and provide what she wants. No,
and I think that's real, that it's important for people to understand, especially when things are fundamentally different from what someone may be accustomed to, that it is a journey. And what's important is to see the effort versus like the outcome is going to be a journey to get to like where you may want it to be. But I think as long as you're seeing effort and incremental improvement, then like you're trending the right way. And that's all you can really ask for someone,
Basically.
What would you say you've learned from your wife?
How to be confident in myself, more than I was before.
Really? I was gonna be. I mean, you're pretty confident, at least to me.
Well, I think I'd say that I am, but like when you're at home by yourself, like, and you get done with the day job, it's like, oh man, I don't know if that went well, or
gotcha.
I could have done this better, or man, I don't know if I'm doing a good job with this outside of work, blah blah blah, and like her being that support system to like, no, you got this, and also keeping me accountable when I say I'm going to do something and I don't. I think has been something I've greatly benefited from, and I try to do the same thing for her. It's like, no, like you superwoman, like, to me, like, screw what society says. I'm gonna make sure you are the best person you could be.
Yeah. How does she? This might allude to a little bit. Or you might allude to, but how does she make you better?
Yeah. I think it kind of goes hand in hand, but of like, the confidence in myself. But how else does she make me better? I think she's making me a better communicator. She's expanded my perspective on how I tend to look at, any type of relationships and potential like problems in the world. Uh, because her lived experience, is still very different from mine.
Mm-hmm.
And as you start to think about how that plays itself out when you are thinking about, you know, housing and kids and education and like, I the way I view each of those buckets is fundamentally different now than, where it was 5-6 years ago. And I attribute that to her.
Okay, cool. How would you say, I mean, I guess not how would you say, but is it important for you to be the leader of the household?
I say yes.
And
yeah,
the head of household, all that stuff, I know they're triggering and loaded words, and so I always want to provide context. And so for you, like, what does that actually mean to you?
I think I'm glad you asked that, because it's not leadership of like, hey, everything I say goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. I like to look at it as like, can I have an active viewpoint and perspective on like the vision of like what all we need to get done, right? So in our household, perfect example of like chores and stuff. I do not like cooking. All right. I don't like it. So what I would do, I do all the dishes. And now you try to institute a system where stepdaughter, she unloads the dishes. I do all the laundry. That is something that I don't have a problem doing. My wife does not like doing laundry at all. Yeah. Right. So like I am okay with that being the case, whereas like, I could talk to some of my family and they're like, wait, what? Like, you doing all this stuff around the house? It's like, no, like we're a unit together, and like I can say we're gonna do X, Y, and Z, but it's only gonna happen if you are on the same page.
Exactly.
Right? Like
and we going left and she walks the other way. It's like, I guess we're not going.
Yeah, it's like, nah. So
we only went left because she came with me.
Yeah, right. And it's like the only way you go get her to go left is if you are actively trying to help her and like do whatever she needs you to do. So that when you need her to do something, like, all right, I'm gonna do it.
No, I definitely understand that, and that makes sense. I was gonna ask you, speaking of like your chores and stuff like that, and we talked about it earlier a little bit, but how do you guys balance the business aspect of the relationship with the like romance and fun of the relationship, and in that also kind of what's more important?
Let's see, if I had to go business versus like romance / fun, I think the way we look at this is, if I had to put a percentage on it, it's like maybe 20-30% romance and fun, 70% business.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say that just because of the phase of where we are in life right now. It's like building a house. Like, we moved a couple of times, dealing with school districts. Like, we gotta, how do we think about social media and stuff as it relates to kids, right? Man. It's not stuff that's just, like just me and her. It's like, these are things that have to get done. And so, honestly, over the course of the last year, outside of, the pure emotional support required for like getting through these tough times, we probably haven't had, much fun. It's probably been more like 90-10. Mm-hmm. And that's something like I think we're both cognizant of, like, okay, outside mostly opening, in the right way. So it's like, how can we institute a date night, once a month, every other time, like, and we haven't necessarily, we live by like putting stuff on the calendar, but we haven't put that on the calendar.
Got it. Yeah, so no, that was gonna be my next question in terms of, does the fun part, just life takes over, right? Require, more intentionality, and how are you guys trying to be more intentional about making? I think, like you said, at least in my experience, the business part is going to show up whether you want it to or not, and then by the nature, like you said, where you are in life, it could show up in a significant way or not. Or may not be as like in your face, and the fun and romance kind of is flexible to adjust accordingly. And so sometimes it requires a little bit more intentionality to make sure that it's keeping that fire flamed, right? And so how do you guys are thinking about, if you guys haven't started, being more intentional about getting that time in?
I think over the last month or so. So two things. First is like since it's been warmer, like we are both working from home now. It's like, oh, we've been looking at these screens all day. Let's get up. We going for walks around the block, around the neighborhood, after 5. And that's kind of like me and her. And like we looking at that. We looking at houses and stuff while we're out and about, like our little catch up time. And so is that fun per se? No, but I think it would still fall in the camp of like, all right, this is our time together. Slightly romantic, but like, still us. Versus like, real example of like last Friday, it was like, oh, stepdaughter was going to the movies. I was like, oh, we got to figure this out. Oh, we going out to eat then. So like my Friday night was going to IKEA for a minute, and then we found a Mexican restaurant. And knowing that I wasn't at the club and they had the live music in there, I'm in there vibing,
live,
like tacos, tequila, and the whole 9, right? And so it's like we just try to use like, all right, we got about an hour and a half here. Like let's make it work. Most of it. Yeah, and I think just there's clearly an opportunity for us to be better about it moving forward. But I think we're on the same page. Like, no, we need to be crafting time out, like for us to go do something.
Yeah,
like
I hear you on that. Why did you get married?
Companionship, partnership. Not trying to get old alone. Don't like being by myself for, extended periods of times. And knowing if I was going to go through this thing called life, it's a lot. It seems like it's more fun and easier if you got somebody, to go through it with officially. Like, no, you mine.
Yeah.
We signed the paper, like, for life.
Yeah. Everybody that I've talked to says it's a better deal. It's a better deal to be in. So,
yeah, I mean, it's I know, like, you mine.
What would you say were some of your biggest misconceptions about marriage? Like entering it.
I think I didn't have as much of a appreciation for how much compromise is required. And it hasn't been on like, big fundamental rock things that we're, disagreeing on, but like, I'll use the example. I was just, talking about how Friday night, I was at a Mexican restaurant, right? So when we were talking last week and we were trying to figure out when we were going to do this, it was one day where, like we were supposed to both take, stepdaughter to like track practice. I was groggy, didn't get up, so she ended up going. I knew she was going to be mad at me. Right? And it came out the next day. So then Friday night, it was like, oh, well, it was an opportunity to go meet mingle with some coworkers that I hadn't seen in like a year.
Yeah.
Right. Had been looking forward to that. But I knew that, all right, well, okay, somebody got to take this girl to the movies. And if she does it by herself, again, I know I ain't going to hear the end of it. So it's like compromise on something that like I have been looking forward to. I know I could, if I pushed forward, she would have been cool, but I'm a feel it later.
Yeah.
Right? So it was like, okay, you know what? My Friday night, we about to go kick it in IKEA, see what they got up in there.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go find something to eat. And it worked out fine. And I had to compromise on, what I wanted to do socially for the better of my.
I'm sure you won later for that one.
It was like I know I'm gonna hear your mouth, so I'm just going.
Yeah,
I'm just going to deal with it, right? And it's like it's fairly basic, but
I think those are the little things that you navigate, right?
All the time,
yeah, definitely.
All the time, man.
No, what would you say? What does it mean to you to be the man in your relationship or in a relationship?
I'd say it's respecting your wife and family at all times, keeping things that are personal between you and keeping it in house. And I think it's on the foundation of being able to provide, for your spouse or your family. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be the breadwinner all the time, but like, what are you actively doing to contribute to our mutual progress?
Got it. So last couple questions I love to end the podcast on, and you're already in one of these situations or getting close to it. You know, what advice do you give or would you give when she's older, your daughter, about dating?
Don't trust them.
Don't trust nothing they say. Ask me first.
Yeah, it's like, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. But the thing that here's the number one thing we prioritize now. It's like, everything don't need to be on the internet. If you don't hear nothing else, just don't put your life on the internet.
Gotcha. And if you I don't know if you guys are gonna try again, but hypothetically, what advice would you give if you guys were to have a son in the future on dating when he's older?
Respect the women that you're around, because you never know how you treat people will come back on you. You know, good or bad. And wrap it up, B. Hey, wrap it up.
That's on that note. That's a good way to wrap this conversation up, man. Courtney, it was a pleasure. I really appreciate how open you were of your life and what's gone on in it, and you know, I definitely know like this conversation is going to be a blessing for someone. So, one, selfishly, it was great catching up with you. We need to do it more. But two, I appreciate how candid and open you were in this conversation. If you appreciated that, there's more candidness, openness, authenticity, and raw experiences that are shared coming in the season. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you share this episode or any other episode that you think will be helpful for someone to a friend. Follow on Instagram at ThinkLoveWife. Make sure you leave a review. Make sure you rate it. And, you know, until next time, we're going to have some new guys come in. But I hope the conversation